just a couple bad weather fans representing New York, talking all things sports. Man, what could go wrong? We got Alex, who's a fan of the Knicks, and Mike of the Nets. The yin-yang of the tri-state, place your bets on the Yankees, Giants, Mets, or Jets. Yeah, you should listen if it's sparking your interest. If you made a vow to your team, don't break it. Bad weather fans is the relation.
That's right. This is Bad Weather Fans, episode number 215. Mike Biseglia alongside Alex Panesowitz. And the New York Knicks get a big win on the road versus the Milwaukee Bucks. Trail by 11 at the half. I'm feeling good. Then they go on a tear in the third and finish off the Bucks in the fourth for a 122-109 win. Meanwhile, over in Brooklyn, the Nets gets... Ugh, I'm trying to think of an adjective for it. I can't pick one. They get destroyed. They lose by 30 to the Kings, although I have some hope with the great play of Noah Clowney, who's looked actually decent as a 19-year-old and something to look forward to as a Nets fan down the stretch. Alex, we've got a fun show prepared for everybody this evening or whenever you're listening. We got a little Knicks Roundtable. Don't worry, Nets Roundtable will be coming next week or the following week after that. But Alex, how are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, we're going to talk Nets with our Knicks fans coming up in a second for sure. I'm looking forward to the show. I've been trying to get on with these two guys forever. We got Lee from the Knick of Time show and Nickinator, the famous Nickinator, the selfie video FaceTime champion over here on Twitter. Sure. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Having a good night.
I'm groovy, bro. Happy to be here representing the KOT team and happy to be finally chopping it up with my main man, Alex.
Yeah, and for Alex, you can go behind the scenes, pull back the curtain, but it's good to see because you and I met, having a little early on back and forth, but it's good to see in similar fashion, you and Lee taking the Twitter bullshit, right, moving it out of the way. And now, Lee can come on the podcast and just, disagree and dislike Alex for his actual opinions in real life and not just for his annoying Ethnic Central Twitter handle, as Nickinator is smiling if you're watching this on YouTube because he knows.
I'm such a nice guy, though. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, me and Lee went back and forth a lot for a long time. We beefed a lot, and then one time I just reached out to him. I was like, because we agreed on like one thing, I think it was, and then I was just like, you know what? Like, what are we doing? Like, you know what I mean? And it was just like, let's bury the hatchet here, and then we did.
That's how it works. We gotta find a common ground.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I feel like you and NYK Mentality 85 are the two people that I hate the most on Twitter. And I still hate him. He's the only person that I hate on its Twitter. The only person I just want to like give a nice, Latino slap to. But you, Mike, you hit my DM and you extended the olive branch. And as we were talking before the show, I think that was a good clarity moment for me to like, yo, man, let me like stop being hateful. Let me stop arguing about like Israel and Palestine with this guy. Let me stop arguing about the Knicks with this guy and just I get to know him as a human. I don't think that would have been the bigger man, and you were. So because you did that, it really like made me rethink my approach and how I was interacting with people, but specifically you. And I was like, you know what? That's my guy now. Like now that we're buddies, we're still gonna roast each other, but I'm gonna fight for you. And if someone makes a personal attack and I see it on my timeline, I'm gonna hop in and support my guy.
I appreciate that, Lily. I appreciate that. Yeah, you know what? It's like there's a lot of personal shit that goes back and forth, and the more your tweets get attention, the more people want to dig into your life. And at some point, I had to address it, and I didn't want to do that, but people were making up stories about my life, and I had to give a little bit insight to my life, and I think I put an end to that. So it is what it is. And unlike Nickinator, who puts his entire life out there,
that's how you avoid that. That's how you avoid all that.
Everybody knows everything.
Yeah, well, I do want to know, Orlando Nickinator, the dynamic of having your brother be a Nets fan is just fascinating and interesting, and just to humor me and the net audience for a minute on why he went to the Nets and you went to the Knicks, and the backstory there is kind of fascinating.
I wish it was something more complicated. It's as simple as sibling rivalry. When I'm the older brother, but I'm shorter than him. I've always have been shorter than him, and we would play for hours in the basketball court in the neighborhood, and even the guys in the neighborhood picked up on our rivalry. So my brother is a Nets fan. He's been a Nets fan, I'm going to say probably since about Drazen. He's a year younger than me, and he's also a Mets fan. I'm a Yankees fan. He's a Bills fan. I'm a Jets fan. And we just kind of went along that vein that wherever there was an opportunity to fight with each other, we grabbed it. So it's a lot of fun. In some ways, it's weird because we really go at each other hard behind the scenes. We thought about trying to do something together but there's just too much antagonism to even try. We
Right.
can't even get long enough to record an episode of anything. So, but yeah, man, it's just a sibling rivalry and coming to life as adults. That's all that is.
Yeah, me and Mike have a little bit of a sibling rivalry sometimes too. But we, it's funny. It's like we tend to agree a lot more lately. The more we've gotten to know each other over the years, it's just that we have our moments and we argue. Like I got really hyped by RJ Barrett a couple of years ago, and I was like, "Oh, he's a star." And Mike's like, "No, he's not." And like we kind of argued for a lot. But that was the end of that season. I forgot which year it was, a couple of years ago, where he was just like, they traded everybody and he just got the ball. He's like, "Give me the ball, get the fuck out of my way," for like a month. And you know what I mean? Everybody got all hyped. And I was one of them. I was like, this guy's a star. This guy has it. And I still think he could be an all-star level player, but you know what? We moved on. So an OG fits perfectly with the Knicks. So it's not the end of the world. But that's the kind of thing that we argue over now. So it is what it is.
Yeah. That's all it is to me, sibling rivalry.
Yeah.
Even went to college where I was a Duke fan and he was Michigan Fab Five. So there's a long history between us. The Derek Coleman and Kenny Anderson years, that was tough times. Yeah, man, it's just a long history of sibling rivalry. That's all it is. Man.
Once Starks broke his wrist, Kenny Anderson's wrist, I'm sure that was a tough night at their house.
Yeah, we're actually going to the game Friday because it's the Nets. It's the Nets.
Yeah.
We're actually going to that game Friday. That'll be fun.
And as a Nets fan, Alex and I were texting about this, although after yesterday's Bucks win, it doesn't feel as possible. But, the Nets have had such a disgusting season that the idea and the only thing like to get me off was the idea of, and I mean that is to for the Nets to just beat the Knicks on a Friday and somehow push them into the play-in, but that feels like it's probably too far away at this point
for Mike.
And it'll just be to move them over. Lee, I'll ask you, obviously, with Knick of Time, do a great job there. You are all over the Knicks. You were telling us in our pre-production meeting that you are essentially on every single episode. You haven't missed a Knick game, so be fascinated to see your viewpoint of this Knicks team, where they are now, kind of a general status with the win over the Bucks and now flirting with the 2, but then also kind of just inches ahead of the 4, 5, and even the 6 seed.
The 4 of us on the Time show, I had been the most out the window first and the loudest. I was saying championship by like December of this year. And then when we got OG, I was like, we have potential to be a dynasty. I did not foresee the injuries that were going to come to both OG, Randle, and Mitch. Now that they are injured, I think we can still make the Eastern Conference run. I think we're set up. This is a team I think we should get into the first apron for, re-sign everybody, and go to war. I'm no longer interested in star chasing. We're going after a Donovan Mitchell or a Cat. I have no interest in any of that. I think the team we have is bona fide championship material. We have a championship level coach and a championship level front office. I've seen lots and lots of misery. I started watching this team right after 2001 Eastern Conference Finals. So
you're the jinx. You're the jinx.
You know what? I've thought about that. I've had long therapy sessions wondering if I'm the problem. I feel like everyone that knows me might agree with that too. So yeah, I started. All I've known is really Dolan's Dante's Inferno, and I've seen horrible stretches by Isaiah Thomas ran the team, Phil Jackson ran the team, still Steve Mills ran the team, even Donnie Walsh. A lot of inept moves that happened there to dump salary, trading away draft picks. So this has been unbelievable. I don't really know how to react to winning. I wasn't there for the 90s. I didn't watch the 99 finals team. I was playing with Barbies with my cousins in the pool. I wasn't paying attention to what was happening on the TV. I don't have those memories. All I have is depression and anxiety from watching this ass crack team do nothing but bring me down and upset me until now. And so, yeah, I'm out the window. I think this is a championship level squad. I think Jalen Brunson's a future MVP. And I was the article that Carson.
Yeah, it was Jimmy Kimmel. It was Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah, I think it was, right?
Yeah. Jimmy Fallon.
Jimmy Fallon. Yes.
He said Jalen Brunson's the best point guard in the NBA. That was my article I wrote for Deadspin. I called that back in December, and I believe it then, and I believe even more now.
Do you, and I'll just have a follow-up. Do you think, and to use your, what you had said, you've only seen misery, you've only seen disgusting basketball. Do you think that has maybe warped your mind that you're now seeing a very good team, but giving you the illusion that it's a title team because your previous viewing was so poor?
I think that's had an effect on me thinking that we can be a dynasty. That type of hyperbole, absolutely. But I think the metrics and the eye test tell me this team can compete for a championship now. I think yes, it's going to be impossible for me not to be informed by the opposite of what I've seen. And the first sight of like positivity, I'm gonna jump out the window. Yeah, I'm definitely going to admit to a certain level of bias there, but I think the level of defense and how well this team fits Tom Thibodeau's identity. This is not a team, it's not a square going to a round hole. This team fits. The identity fits, and identity is there. For the first time since I've been a fan, we have an identity. So that in itself is a miracle.
Yeah, Nick and Nader, what do you think the Knicks ceiling is this year? Now that we know the roster, Randall's done for the year, we got OG and Mitch back. What's their ceiling for, in your opinion?
Yeah, I'm not as enthused as Lee is. I kind of see us getting to that second round, and I think there's a possibility that we go beyond that. But I really see that as our ceiling. Jalen's been great. Jalen's been amazing. When we first signed him, this was not what I expected. I expected maybe what's the name of this kid that Houston now signed away from, Fred VanVleet. I thought he'd be something like Fred VanVleet, but the intangibles with this guy are amazing. The leadership with this guy is amazing. I think the first example of that you see it with Julius. Julius kind of changed. I don't want to say changed his demeanor, but when those challenging moments came, a lot of times in the past, Julius will let his emotions get the best of him, and I think that Jalen had that calming effect on him. Jalen has that presence, so that's something that's just amazing for our team. So that kind of inspires me a lot. But again, I don't really see us maybe the second round at best. I don't know if we really get past that.
I hear you.
It's wild because, and he's a very different player, but you see a lot of similarities in what's happened with James Harden when he left OKC, where he was a part of the team and a big part of it. But then he leaves, he gets his own squad in Houston, and now becomes the MVP candidate. He becomes the beard. He becomes a guy. And I'm not saying it's the same type player, but you're almost, in my viewpoint, I'm seeing it happen again where you think you signed a guy, like you said, a Fred VanVleet, but now, I mean, you have somebody that you can consist on for the next 5 years or whatever and beyond that can be a leader of your franchise for winning basketball. And it's a little bit of luck, in my opinion, but hey, who gives a shit? You know, he's there.
Yeah, it's refreshing as a Knicks fan. You know, I go back to 1985. I go back to, and I said this before, I always say this, my first Knicks memory is Pat Cummings got into a fight with AC Green on Channel 9 at like 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, oh shit, they're fighting. And my father's yelling at me like, what are you doing? You're up. And so those are like my first memories of the Knicks. And I've seen a lot since then. And I don't know that I've experienced anything at the point guard quite like Jalen. It's refreshing, man. It does inspire confidence, but I just feel like he needs a little more. We need another guy in there to really provide some punch, some shot creation, some gravity for him to be able to work. So
yeah, and I started watching Knicks like 91 and 2-ish, you know, when I was like 6, 7 years old. You know, that's the first teams that I really remember. So I didn't see Mark Jackson, Rod Strickland with the Knicks, but everybody goes back. Jalen Brunson's the best point guard since Clyde, and they just skip over Mark Jackson. Do you find that offensive in a way, or do you think he is that much better than Mark Jackson as a Knick?
Funny thing. So me being from the Bronx, I was a Rod Strickland guy. And when Rod got traded, I can't lie to you, I had my biases against Mark, so I don't think I was ever fair to Mark. But when Mark left was when I really began to appreciate Mark Jackson. Mark Jackson is a floor leader. He's a general. He was a solid point guard then, and I really
especially getting Charles Smith back and Doc Rivers. That was awful.
Alex, come on, what are we doing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Positivity. Yeah.
Positivity. Yeah, Mark Jackson definitely gets glossed over a little bit. I think it's part of that history with the Pacers. I hated that time, so it's hard for me personally because I remember those memories vividly. I hated the Pacers. But Mark is definitely up there, so I do think it's a little unfair that he gets glossed over like that. But Jalen's amazing, man. That's what happens. The other thing to consider too, and I don't think anyone's had this. I make this point about Carmelo and the front office and what Jalen has here. Like he has a situation where he literally has his dad on the sideline. You have those challenging moments. You're getting counsel from your father, right? You're getting the family tree is all around you. So he really has the floor set up in front of him.
Somebody can check him at all times, you know?
Yeah. So he can reach his potential, though. He can maximize his potential because he has that nurture around him. So it's a fun thing to watch. It's a unique thing. I think it's kind of a rare thing. Folks used to cry about the politics around MSG and CAA and all those things that come up in these conversations online. But right now, we've done nothing but benefit from those things. So it's just a good time for me.
And you know what changes all of that negativity? It's winning basketball games.
True.
And when you do that, all of that stuff just doesn't matter.
Dude, the funny thing, I was listening to the episode before, right? And Alex is jumping out of the window, right? It's like, oh, OG's done. Randle's done.
Because we're getting no color on the injury report. We're just getting bullshit.
We're chopping. And then your last episode, right? So then we get I think Sacramento, we get Chicago, and now it's like, okay, we're back. We're gonna be
We're
the
back.
2 seed. It's hilarious to me, but it's how you live and die as a diehard. That's how we are as diehards. So it's
Right.
it's
Rationality is there, but sometimes you know, like Lee, you said, like we're gonna be a dynasty now, and sometimes I'll say some shit where I get pissed off by a move. We're gonna be mid forever. And like I'm just mad. Like I'm just a
Yeah,
fan.
I know.
Like don't take my words so literally, everybody. You know what I'm saying? That's all. And Lee,
It's-
what do you think about that? The rationality of a fan.
I struggle with it because I want so badly to see a championship with my father and I. It's like I think it's the one thing I want more than anything. And now that all the cronyism and nepotism of the Knicks is finally working in our favor, and we have like this father-son with Jalen and his dad, but also with Sam Rose and Leon Rose as well. Sam Rose representing OG and Brunson and having his father run the Knicks. I love that level of like father son. What Nick Nader was speaking on, someone that he can go on the bench, not just check him, but also be in his ear and tell him what he needs to know and be able to push the right buttons to get the best out of him. I want to watch a chip with my father, and my dad's getting up there in age, and I feel like we don't have 3 decades left, right? Like this is the best we've ever been, where we actually have the window open for us to go win it. Let's still win it. I think we have the right pieces. It's really right now, it comes down to luck. Like we've everything else you need. Having a superstar player, having a coach who can make the adjustments to get you there, having a front office that doesn't waste assets, having a team that complements a player's strengths and weaknesses, all that's in place. Now we just need the luck of health and guys getting hot at the right time. I think we can actually win one. Not this year with Randle out, but in the future.
What's that?
Mike, what do you want to say? Mike
I
wants to pour
I
some
could go
cold water
and
on that.
I could go and say no, I won't do that. Well, what you were saying, you depressed me a little bit, Lee, because I had a team in the Nets that was in that championship window.
Yeah.
I mean, they were in it, especially when they went into the season with Harden, Kyrie, and Durant. And to your point, you need a little luck. Nets got very unlucky in the series versus the Bucks. First 2 games, they beat them by 40 and 49. They were rolling. They lose Harden, Kyrie. They still almost win the series. And for me and my dad, who took me to net games my whole life, like that was the dream. I could taste it a little bit. I know it closest I've been in 20 years to tasting it. And I have no chance in the immediate future. So then to hear all that, quite honestly, is depressing. I mean, there's no other way to put it around. Like it sucks to not be close
Especially the
to
Knicks.
it.
Yeah.
And then, but you're right. You need a lot of luck. I'm curious. You don't think the Knicks can win a championship, get there. So I'll kind of think about this. You like whoever comes out of the West more than the Celtics.
Yes, I do, because Jason Tatum shooting 14% the clutch, Brown shooting maybe a little bit over 23%, and Joe Mazzulla has not shown that he can win tight games in crunch time when it comes to X's and O's. He lost to Steve Kerr in that capacity. I don't think he's gotten better in this game. They've been a troubling and inconsistent crunch time team. In terms of clutch points. So I don't trust him and Tatum and Brown as a trio, nor do I trust KP at this point either, even though he's the 4th option on that team. It's really Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday's going to have to become the best version he's ever been in crunch time for them to win a championship. And I don't think Tatum acquiesces those shots because he's one of the highest 4th quarter shot taking guys. I mean, he's number 6 right now in attempts during clutch time. There's no way he's going to acquiesce to Drew Holiday. He's going to take that shot and he's going to miss that shot.
I think a lot.
Oh, go ahead.
I think time. You look at teams that build to get to different places. Happened with the Pistons. Happened with the Bulls and Jordan. I think it happened with Shaq and Kobe. I think teams need to go through their lumps before they get to that next phase. And all good points about Tatum and the Celtics. I think though, looking at this season and how they've steamrolled the East, it feels like it's their turn to take that next jump up. Even though you're right, they've had those failures. They have come up short. They did it last year, the year before. It feels like it's their turn. Only time will tell. If you're right to your opinion, I have mine. But it feels like from my end, this is their season to take a jump. And I'm curious then to ask you, because I think Tom Thibodeau doesn't get enough credit in this city. I think he has done coach of the year caliber work, and he has been that good. But just like Doc Rivers, although people want to obsess over Doc's failures in the playoffs because it's fun, Thibodeau has not shown in the playoffs that he can make the adjustments. What makes you feel different about Tom this year as opposed to previous seasons?
That's a great point. I argued with Raw when Raw was on the Time show about this very point that at the time I said that Tom Thibodeau has only beaten a higher seed team once in his career. It was 2013
Wow.
when the Chicago Bulls beat the Nets. It was the only time that he went up against a higher seed team and won. And I believe that was in the first round. Last year was only the one other time he did it when he beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, who were the fourth seed to the Knicks 5. So I think that there's potential there for him to continue getting better. What I've enjoyed is watching things that were a part of his lineage from the Chicago days, things that he learned from Jeff Van Gundy and Doc Rivers that were holding him back in the modern era. And those things are not resorting in a 90% of the time being in a drop coverage in the post. Also not being man-to-man 100% of the game, being able to switch into a zone or being able to switch into even a simple high school bots and one when you have a guy going off on you, especially a role player going off on you, being able to bench Alec Burks and healthy DNPs, being able to keep Dante DiVincenzo in the starting lineup and then augment with Miles McBride in the starting lineup and go small. Those type of things. I've seen adjustments I've never seen with him in the Chicago and Minnesota games where he's starting to freestyle when he needs to freestyle it in the games. And that is the number one confidence boost I have in him being able to win us enough series to the Eastern Conference Finals this year until I think talent overwhelms us because of the lack of Randle.
And what scares me the most about Thibs in the playoffs, though, is that this offense is just a lot of chucking up threes. I mean, I know that's the NBA now, but, you see that, like, the Knicks make their runs when they start getting hot. You know what I mean? From deep. Like, that's their whole offense at this point. And I know they don't have Randle to kind of, counteract that on the inside, but that's the only thing that bothers me. And sorry, Nick Nader, I jumped on you. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I wanted to touch on a point that Lee made, because when I look at the Celtic roster, the only thing I really wonder is because I think Drew Holiday is key. I can't believe Milwaukee made that trade. I think that he's the only guy, and maybe you guys know better than I do, but I do think he's the only guy that's there that has some sort of championship pedigree. So I think he kind of brings that. He's cut from that cloth. He's been there. He knows what that challenge is, and he's going to help that team in those moments in the past where maybe they struggle because they lack that kind of leadership. They have two studs, but they're young studs. They didn't go through it. Here's a guy that's been through it, and here's the guy that's playing with the chip on the shoulder. So I almost feel like that move was such a big move for them. And then the other point I wanted to touch on with what Lee brought up about Tom, I've had my reservations about Tom. I think that one of the things I got to a point where I realized what was going on with William Wesley and Cam Reddish, and as far as the direction with the team, I always felt like they were half pregnant. And then they had that moment of truth, right? They had that moment of truth where they decided they're going to buy into the Thib way. They're going to Thib it up the rest of the way. And you started seeing changes. And what I didn't know, I don't know what to think about it now, but I got to be fair. I got to say that Thib is making those adjustments. Maybe he didn't believe in those players that we had in the past. And so we didn't get to see that because he didn't have the faith in those guys to make certain adjustments. But now you see him doing things with Precious. You see him doing things with Josh Hart that you wouldn't see in the past. So, you got to be fair. I think Lee made a really fair point there about Thibs. And honestly, I think that he's a candidate for Coach of the Year because we've taken some real hits injury-wise. Mm-hmm. And we've been in the mix. We have not slipped in the standings like that. We've been in the fight. Every game is competitive. You don't see the blowouts. You don't see, what's this guy, David Fizdale smiling, dying 44 points. You don't see that anymore. We're in these games. So that's, I got to be fair. That's a credit to Thibs. So it's an interesting time, man. I'm hopeful. I'm excited. And at the same time, I'm cautious.
Alex, yeah, I mean, go ahead. What did we say, Lee? Go ahead.
I wanted to respond to what you said about checking up threes.
Yes,
that in itself is an evolution of Thibs. Thibs' right. Chicago Bulls teams were always bottom of the lead in three-point attempts, basically trending against where the NBA was going momentum-wise and offensive steam-wise. What I like that he's done now, and what's different now than in 2020, 21, is the way the offense was run. Elfrid Payton would run up, and there would be a pass, and then maybe another hockey pass, and then Reggie Bullock was expected to either pump fake and drive to the basket, which he can't do, or shoot a three if he has a space. And what happened in the playoffs is Atlanta Hawks collapsed and blitzed all the three-point shooters. And when Reggie Bullock has a hand in his face, and as he showed in Dallas later on, he can't hit the mark. What's happening now is Tom Thibodeau has implemented small screens to get these guys more open. There's more off-ball movement happening with off-ball screens, and he's allowing Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo to go on ball, which Derrick Rose never went off ball in Chicago. It was constant on ball action, which wore him out and caused a lot of injuries because of how active he was in the offense, going up against constant defenders and running the screens. Brunson's now is a lot of catch and shoot, which takes less energy. It takes less of a physical toll, and it takes less of an effort for him to get his shot up and get easy points in the rhythm of the offense. So those little small wrinkles that he's added, I think you saw that last game against who was it?
Chicago? I don't know.
The last win, Milwaukee.
Milwaukee. Okay.
We dominated the paint so much. Brook Lopez had going to that drop coverage. It allowed for Bodie, OG, and Brunson to get mid-range action. So now that makes it even harder to pressure 3-point line even more. So those are small wrinkles. I didn't see that in Chicago. Didn't see it in Minnesota. To me, it makes a case for Thibs being an evolving coach and being ready to win a championship with this current squad.
Right. But then you also, on the flip side of that, you see Thibs, half the Knicks team got injured this year too. So like, it's just like, I know you can't blame them for all that stuff, all the injuries, but like how hard are they working them? You know what I mean? Like you see these games that they're up 20. Like I didn't give him shit for the Randle injury. Cause what was it like? They were up 17 with like 4 minutes left. Like that's anybody's game at that point. You know what I mean? I don't remember the exact number, but it was like 4 or 5 minutes left. Like anything can happen in 4 or 5 minutes in the NBA today. But overall, is he overplaying these guys? Why they're getting hurt? Is it just a coincidence that half the team got hurt this year, or did he you're saying he like learned, but did he? Because this team is still getting injured like they were in Chicago. So like that's where I'm getting a little confused there.
Derrick Rose was the only one in Chicago who got hurt. Kyle Korver and Joakim Noah and Lou Dane, they were healthy.
Well, not Korver. You meant Korver wasn't there. Was he? Was he there?
Yeah.
I thought he was in Atlanta.
There too.
Oh no, never mind. I'm thinking of somebody else. All right, good. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in Chicago before he went to Atlanta.
Got it.
But Derrick Rose was the only one who got hurt during that time. And Zach LaVine and Andrew Wiggins and Karl-Anthony Towns and Jimmy Butler, they weren't hurt in Minnesota either. So it's really this year, the injuries that have happened have not been because guys are playing too many minutes. Mitchell Robinson went down pretty early in the season. There's no way you can say that because he played 30 games, he was already worn out. Julius Randle, I agree with you. That's incidental contact with Jaime Jaquez, hurting him, pulling his shoulder out. OG, he's injury prone. Like he's a Lego. My opinion. I have major concerns about his health moving forward. That's not Tom Thibodeau. My man was injured this season in December doing household chores, and he had to sit out a couple of games with a hurt hand. This is not Thibs' fault. These are situational things that you have to look at with nuance, and not just say, "Oh, we had 3 guys out. Let's blame all 3 injuries on Thibs."
Right. Like when we really quick, Mike. When we did the show on WFAN, Mike and I, when we had that shift. Our producer at the time was a diehard Chicago Bulls fan, and I asked him directly. His name is Carlos, and I was like, "Do you think Thibs ran these players in the ground?" He's like, "Yes." He thinks that Thibs, and he agreed with me that Thibs ran Luol Deng, Joakim Noah, and Derrick Rose into the ground. So that's what I'm saying when I say that he caused those kind of injuries.
I would say, like, case in point, Nets, Knicks, and Deuce is playing 48 minutes versus the Nets. You gotta find. I understand you got an injury here or there.
Give him 5 minutes then.
But somebody else has to play. And I say that tongue in cheek. Nets are a bad team. You get worried then when you play in the playoffs and the Knicks are going to go against opponents that are going to bring the energy like they do in those rounds. Are you worried then from that perspective? Okay, now we're playing these teams, and because of all these injuries, Josh Hart, Deuce McBride, they've all played an insane amount of minutes. And I'm not telling you this will happen. I'm just telling you a fear I'd have. If God forbid I rooted for the Knicks and I was looking at it from that lens, my honest opinion would be I'm nervous that these guys are getting a little burned out. And then they get to the playoffs and they lose a little in the tank when Josh Hart is essentially playing 48 minutes a game every other night. That's a lot. And you do have to evolve a little bit in the NBA, and not to the extreme of the Nets where James Harden's going off, Kyrie Irving's leaving for a week. There's obviously some pullback there. And I'll use the Nets for an example because their best player, or used to be best player, has been a no-show because he's been burned out and played too many minutes. At some point you need to, I would just say, touch back a little bit. And to me, it's like, is the 3 seed or the 5 seed really matter as opposed to just being right when it counts? To what you're saying, Lee, does it even matter what the seeds are because the Knicks are that talented and that cohesive? Is it worth getting a win earlier in the season and burning dudes out until you get to the playoffs?
You want me to respond?
I'd love for you to respond.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's definitely an argument that the Thibs plays his guys too many minutes. That I agree with. I don't agree that because he plays guys a lot of minutes, there's been this long history list of guys who've gotten major injuries. Derrick Rose is the only one. There was
Right.
no one else who had a serious, almost career-altering injury under his coaching leadership. The guys that are playing a lot of minutes right now, I'm also not concerned with. If it was a Julius Randle playing at this point in the season, he was healthy, he's playing 40 minutes a game, I'm very concerned when you have Precious Achiuwa off the bench. That's depth. But Deuce McBride's been on the bench or in street clothes or in the G League for the last couple of seasons. He doesn't have a lot of miles on his feet or on his body. And honestly, neither does Josh Hart as well. These guys, I know he's a little bit older than Brunson. I think he's 28 or 29 this season, but he's been a bench guy his entire career too. And Brunson was a bench guy in Dallas up until his last year. So these aren't guys with a long track record of major minutes in both postseason and regular season. Last year was Josh Hart's first postseason. So yes, they're playing a lot of minutes right now because we don't have the depth. But when we're fully healthy and we have that 9-man rotation, I don't see Deuce McBride playing 40 minutes. It's circumstantial to the type of roster we have right now and guys being out.
Are you on Tom Thibodeau's payroll, man? Like the
it's so funny, man, that people call Tom Thibodeau like simp. I was fired Thibs. I went on SNY with a fired Thibs sign last year.
I know.
But when the evidence in front of me changes, I have to change my view. I'm not going to be stubborn and be agenda focused or trying to have a narrative out here. I have seen Tom Thibodeau improve in the ways I was the most frustrated. All those wrinkles offensively I talked about, he wasn't doing that last year. He's doing it this year, so I can't be as mad. If OG, Randle, and Mitch were all healthy and Deuce McBride was still playing 40 minutes, yeah, you absolutely have a case. But I think that it's okay right now with the guys in the rotation that we have until we get that backup playmaker for him to be that ball hawk right now playing 40 minutes a game. I'm all right with it.
Yeah, and I agree with you. You have to evolve as a fan. Sorry, Nick. I'll get you in there one second. You have to evolve as a fan, and like I did with Randle, people like look at me this is a Julius Randle hater. I was the biggest Julius Randle supporter. Like I celebrated when they signed him in 2019. I was excited. I defended him, and then the thumbs down thing was kind of the turning me away. And then when he got a fan kicked out somewhere, I think Orlando, and I was just like, oh man, fuck this guy. And then you know what I mean. And then he's just lazy in the playoffs and plays poorly and this and that, and But come January, come December, and January, February, before he got hurt, I don't know if he got hurt in February, whenever he got hurt, I was like, whoa, okay, Randle, this is the guy I want to see play. Like, this is how you're supposed to be playing. If this works now, okay, now we can make some noise. And Nick, there, I want to know what you think about that as well.
I never, what I was going to say was I never subscribed to this narrative about Thibs that he's running guys into the ground. I think it's a cop-out. I think if you look at the minutes in the league for all of the core players for the teams that are really competing, they're up around the same amount of minutes, if not more. So I've never really subscribed to that. And I'm not a Tom Thibodeau simp. I'm definitely not, I'm not a shill for them, their organization. I've got some really mean tweets out in the stratosphere about Tom Thibodeau. But when I see those things, I don't subscribe to that. I think if there was some sort of result to all of it, you'd see it down the road with the Josh Hart when he's 30, 32, and maybe he's a little out of steam. But I don't think you'd see that now. And like Lee said, these guys weren't really getting that kind of minutes in the previous lives they had at other organizations. So I think it's much ado about nothing, to be honest with you.
Nick and Nader, who is the one team in the first round you don't want to see?
That's a great question. The two teams to me that I kind of think about, because we're looking at that 2 seed, the possibility of it, I don't want to see the 76ers, and I don't want to see the Heat.
The play-in teams.
Right. I don't want to see those teams. A lot of noise was made about ending up with Orlando and Cleveland, and I would look forward to those matchups. I have no problems matching up with them, but those are the 2 teams early that I wouldn't want to face if I could control it.
So you're not worried about the Pacers or anybody like that. So yeah,
those guys are food, bro. Those guys are food. You know, cook them up and serve them. I'm not worried about them at all.
Halliburton's never been in the playoffs, which is crazy. Yeah.
The decline is crazy since the break. I don't know what's going on with them. He's talking about threats with gambling or whatever. I don't know what that kid is going through, but he's not checked in. So whatever with them. I'm not worried about
Obi Toppin, though, bro. No, I'm just kidding. But no, the Sixers scare the crap out of me, man. Like I figure like Knicks are gonna get the 2 seed, and then the Sixers are gonna win the play-in because they're starting to win, man. Embiid's back. I know he took a game off the last game, but he's just getting right. But the Sixers were a title contender going into the season. And before Embiid got hurt, people forget they were a top 2, 3 team. But like we were celebrating, we took them out of the 3 seed. You know what I mean? So like, 100%. People forget the Sixers are legit. Like, and Embiid, I don't think, is lost in the first round yet. You know what I mean? So that's going to be scary, man. And, he's an MVP for a reason. So I don't know. The Heat, I feel like the Knicks can, they're a bit in their head, but I think the Knicks are ready for them now. I think it's time. You know what I mean? I don't know, but
I mean, I'm
Spoelstra
not.
outcoaches everybody though, so he scares
Yeah,
me.
I mean, it's not like I want to duck them. It's not like, oh damn, we got the Heat. But if I could avoid them, just to answer this question, if I could avoid them,
Yeah,
I'd
yeah.
avoid those. Those are the two teams to me. I don't really see anybody else as something that I'm worried about.
Lee, same question for you.
The only team I don't want to face in the first round is Miami Heat. Not because we can't beat them, because I think we take them in 6, but it's the fear of someone getting injured. It's like a Josh Hart
That's a great point.
Jalen Brunson, Precious, anyone who's a key part of that 9-man rotation. God forbid the starting 5 gets injured by a effing Jaime Jaquez or Bam Adebayo moving strain. That it scares me for the playoffs and for the future of that player's career. I would love to get a lit back against Miami. And if we play them, cool, we wouldn't smoke them. But how does that impede our progress in the next round when guys are nursing injuries or severe injuries that would happen to Randle, knock on wood? Philly, very good team. Agree. No disrespect to Joel Embiid, probably my favorite big in the NBA, but they're perimeter guys. They're weak on defense. Dean and Healed, like that's food. Tobias Harris, I think that we can really break them down on the perimeter and get some nice wide open looks. And we had the bigs to hit fouls and contend with Embiid. I think Sims overtakes Bogdanovic in the rotation in that series. So we had 3 big guys to throw on Embiid.
2 points to you, Lee. One, the last game Kevin Durant ever played as a Brooklyn Net was against the Miami Heat. He got hurt. Kyrie asked for a trade and he was out. So it was a Jimmy Butler play and Net fans were pissed. Now, that being Durant's last game has nothing to do with the Miami Heat. That has everything to do with the instability of the players in the organization, but he was hurt. Part 2, Lee, I now have to go back and listen to everything you have said for the last 5 years to make sure that you have been negative about the Knicks. Because if you are this positive after being that negative, you are scaring the living shit out of me.
Dude, I was one of the most negative people on Twitter, no doubt. I've never been harsh on Leon Rose. Definitely was harsh. My banner on Twitter was a plane carrying a sign that said "Fire Thibs." I was really Thibs was like my main crosshairs. Him and Randle. I wrote for Posting and Toasting for 2 years and had many articles about why Julius Randle should be traded and Tom Thibodeau should be fired. Again, when the evidence in front of you changes, I changed my opinion too. Okay, we have a different opinion now than I did 5 years ago. Thank God. To me, that shows progress.
Did you pick the Heat to win the title last year? Go to the finals. Tell me the answer is that? All right, just double check. Just double checking because
I won good money on the finals taking Denver with my Miami Heat fan.
All right, just being
sure. I had
a
buddy who's a Heat fan. I took his lunch.
I was ready. I was on the Nuggets last year too, man. I didn't bet on them, but I was just like, you know what? They're ready to win. And that, to Mike's point earlier about the Celtics, like the Nuggets last year, nobody was talking about them. And Jamal Murray was hurt a couple of years and looking at Jokic like, he can't win in the playoffs. And you know what I mean? Meanwhile, they just were never healthy. Michael Porter Jr. was always hurt. And now the Celtics, like, look at them. If Porzingis can stay healthy and like Drew Holiday's there and everything like that, they're scary, man. This could be their year, and I don't want to admit it. And the scariest thing as a Knicks fan, maybe you guys, I want to hear what you guys think. Scariest thing for a Knicks fan is we go on a run, we get the Eastern Conference Finals, and then Porzingis beats us in the Eastern Conference Finals, gets to the finals. Oh, yeah. That is my biggest fear of this playoff, because that's the only way that an Eastern Conference Finals trip can get tainted a little bit.
Look, if we didn't have Julius Randle and we made it to Eastern Conference Finals, that's a feather, man. That's a feather.
Yeah.
I would hate that it's them. I would hate that, but you can't dismiss the juggernaut that they are. They're putting up points. Al Horford is still Al Horford. Like I said earlier about Drew Holiday, you got a guy with a championship pedigree leading the way for those guys. What's this guy? Fisher? Not Fisher.
Derek White.
Derek White. That he's so underrated, man. You love guys like that. He's a little more than Josh Hart offensively, but he's a guy that does all the dirty work. Guy that's smart, knows what he's doing on the floor. Those are the kind of guys that help you win championships. So with a leader like Drew Holiday there now, you might be right, man. You might be right. But I wouldn't poo-poo it, because I know that if we got into that situation, we're in that scenario in the Eastern Conference Final, that's a win for us. That's a win.
It's funny, the unintended consequences, the Bucks dealing for Dame and then what it means. And then the Celtics take advantage of that. And now you go 4 games left in the season. The Bucks look like they're a mess. Although things can change in the playoffs. It's the second season. While the Celtics are just basically on cruise control, they've clinched the East for weeks, and they picked up Holiday and haven't looked back. And Dame looks a step behind, not as engaged. And even though the Bucks are still technically the 2 seed, they're
beatable.
There definitely are some holes in them where I think that's what makes the Eastern Conference so wild this year is you look at the 2 seed through the 8 seed, and I personally wouldn't be surprised if any of those teams knocked off any of those other teams in a game, because 2 through 8, it's like 4 or 5 games. They're all just so close. 2 through 7, I guess. You could you could see a wild first round where Orlando's beating Milwaukee, Cleveland's defeating Indiana. I mean, you get ready to see some wild shit here in the first round of the playoffs, which I think will be fun for NBA fans.
Yeah, and the play-in tournament on both sides is going to be fun too. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's what the NBA wanted with the new CBA. They wanted parity, and they definitely got it. Because it's like you said, everyone within 2, I'm going to say to 7 is like maybe 3 games. There's only a few games left in the season, but 3 games right now separate people. So
teams are playing hard. Yeah.
Mike just roasted me for being overly optimistic, but there's real parity in the NBA. There's no Shaq and Kobe Lakers. There's no Duncan Spur dynasty.
The 2 teams that beat my team in the fucking finals thing. I appreciate it, Lee. Thanks, man. Back to back.
But I think the East is weak. The East is
it is.
Than the West. The Knicks have a real shot when they're healthy to get to the finals. Why would I not be very optimistic and happy?
No, I get it.
Nets we've been dog shit for 2 straight decades under James Dolan. We were a laughing stock. And it was a rocky to build around Tom Thibodeau correctly. First of all, that's a hell of a choice to build around your coach. I mean, I don't know if I agree with that concept, but it's working for now. And Brunson's a perfect proxy for him. He represents everything Thibs wants in a star point guard. So man, while things are good, I'm gonna enjoy it. When they're bad, don't worry. I have a spliff rolled up, ready to smoke it. But I need to make the bad vibes go away.
No,
Jalen Brunson also, like, nobody knew he's the key to all this. I mean, like, listen, like, nobody knew he was going to be this good. I don't think Leon Rose even knew he was going to be this good. I don't think Jalen Brunson knew he'd be this good. The Knicks hit a home run here, hit a grand slam with Jalen Brunson. This brought him in here. I wasn't too happy about him. Like, all right, he's a good starting point guard. Let's get Donovan Mitchell and pair him with him, and then let's go, But Jalen Brunson's a superstar on his own. Like, we don't need a star. We got one. Like, you know what I mean? Let's build around him. And I think he masks everything, because Randle couldn't hack it as the number 1 guy, and he was getting too frustrated, and he'd sulk and, push teammates out of the way, and it was just getting to be too much. He needed somebody to take the pressure off, and that's what Jalen Brunson did. And Josh Hart, also that acquisition as well, has turned the franchise around. Like, they're like 30, 40 games over 500 with him on the team, which is insane. And that's not even exaggerating, and a round 1 in the playoffs as well. And I think Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson poke fun at Julius Randle and get him to calm down. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when you're really stressed and you're like, and then like your boy could be like, bro, what the fuck are you talking about? And like, you just start laughing. Like, that's what they do for him. Yeah. And I think they cut the tension for him. And I think that's been helped this team.
They're leaders.
Like the next step.
They're leaders. There's no doubt about it. I mean, they are leaders. And when your best player on the court, off the court, leads by example, people follow. And that stuff's real. And, I'll use the C word here to make you laugh, Alex. But their culture's good, man. And it also relax. Their culture's good. And it all stems from that. Lee and Nick and Nader, I want your favorite, if you have one, Nick net moment that you can remember, or one that stands out, good or bad.
I got it. Yeah.
Go for it, Lee.
The Fugazi shit between Tim Thomas and Kenyon Martin.
Yeah,
Kenyon Martin had the Crying Tim shirt that he wore, the New York Post back page. That I was at 3 years into my fandom. That was the first playoff series I saw, 2004, and for that to happen, and then it swept. That all that culmination, I was like, what did I sign up for, man? Like, this is a team I'm gonna start rooting for. I was like, damn, this is embarrassing. And if I only knew, it would get worse from there. To me, that whole culmination, and then Kenyon going to the Knicks in the early 2010s, as someone who's also from Dallas, I love that guy. So to have someone I loved, a player I loved from my neighborhood, shitting on my team, I think that was my first existential moment with the Knicks.
Well, you got some points back with me, Lee, because he's my favorite net of all time.
I love Kenyon.
Yeah, because I love Kenyon because everybody hated him and he did not give a shit. There was a game, and this is a true story with Kenyon, where he had never even played Karl Malone, but he had heard something that he didn't like about him. In the first game he played Karl in the Jazz, he just clotheslined him for the fuck of it, because that was Kenyon. And from a net perspective of a team that was kind of just always lost, it was nice to have a guy not saying he's going out and just hitting players all the time, but it was
Be
nice
tough.
to have a guy that
Yeah.
was added some toughness to the Nets
Backbone,
and embraced the New Jersey aspect of it. So that did make me smile a little. All right, Nickinator, brother that's a Nets fan.
Yeah, it's funny because with my brother, when the Nets have been good, we've sucked. We haven't really been good like that. So, and then when we were good, the Nets were really kind of struggling. The only moment that I really had to tell to me, and it's kind of stupid, and it goes right back to my sibling rivalries. My brother and I literally had a fight. We had a fight out in public on the basketball court. Kenny Anderson had dropped like 42 against us, and they beat us. And I was so pissed. And we were playing the game. It was 21. It was a neighbor, and everybody knew, they're talking junk. And I just had a point. I threw the ball at my brother. And we got into a fight in the middle of the basketball court. And they're like, well, what are they fighting about? Like, Kenny Anderson had fucking 42 points on us. Fuck you. Boom. And I just hit him with the basketball. So I know it probably doesn't answer the question the way that you want, but that's the one moment.
No. It doesn't have to be, it could be any moment. So no, that's a real moment. And it's just if that's the one that both interesting though, both old school memories, nothing really from the last, that's true. Good point though. And it's unfortunate, I think, for what could be a fun rivalry, is that when one team was good, the other team really wasn't. And I guess a few years ago when the Knicks had the surprise run and lost to the Hawks in the first round, but they've never both kind of been ascending at the same time, because it would be a lot of fun. But now it's just like, what am I going to say? You're going to beat the shit out of us.
The Knicks kind of stole the Nets' thunder and with the medal year in 2013 with 54 wins, because that was the year the Nets were going to be good. They won a round, right? They won around that year, I think. That's the year they lost with Paul Pierce. And
beat the Raptors in the first round.
Right. They were just so much better than the Nets that the Nets couldn't brag. Like, look at us. We're in Brooklyn. We got a good team. It was like the Knicks are like, we won the division. Like, look at us. You know what I mean? So I think for me, like the most recent memory that annoys me, and I bring this up on the podcast all the time, was the Randle play versus the Nets when Randle went up and Kyrie hit it and dislodged the ball, but then the ref said, no, the ball never dislodged, even though the ball moved like completely. And like, there was not a good view to review. And that ended the game. And Randle like hit the chair on the way out of that was like one of those, like
the good old days
that always be in my head, that one. And when, one of those first Knicks Nets Brooklyn games with Tyson Chandler had that big putback dunk, I think it was really good. When the Nets came to Brooklyn, that's when I really started hating them, because I disliked the Nets a little bit, but it was never like hate when they were in Jersey. It was kind of like, oh, I like Kenny Anderson. I like Derek Coleman. I like these guys. It's okay. Sam Cassell, I loved, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, there was nothing to really hate about them. You know what I mean? And then when they got to Brooklyn, started talking shit, put up the billboards and all that stuff. I'm like, oh man, fuck these guys. So that's my hate. That's where my hatred comes from.
I got memories that go back to Drazen Petrovic. I got memories that go back to Buck Williams. That's a lot of old school stuff with me and my brother. Even the guy that I used to call him Christopher Williams, even though I don't think that was his name anymore, but he reminded me of the R&B singer, so I called him that.
Aaron Williams?
No, was that Aaron Williams?
What?
I mean, unfortunately, he ended up having a problem with a limo driver, and then he got arrested.
Jason Williams.
Oh, Jason Williams.
Thank you.
I thought you were. I didn't know. I figured you would mention Jason Williams. That's why I was trying to think of an obscure net. Yeah.
For me, it goes back to that point where we've never been really good, and they've never been really good at the same time. So that's the one moment my brother and I haven't had. So I'm hoping that we can get there at some point. I find the Nets really interesting right now. What's happening with Clowney is interesting. What they do with Mikal Bridges, Spider. There was some information that came out about Johnny Bryant being a possibility, which makes me think that Donovan Mitchell's in play. So I really, of course, what's happening with us is what's paramount. But I find the Nets in a real interesting position right now. There's a lot of ways that they can go.
Yeah, this is a big offseason for the Nets. Unfortunately, the Nets have become what the Knicks were, where they're just dreaming of stars. And they have a track record where they haven't gotten them. So I'm not saying it's impossible. And there are some connections there. But leaning on that as your future is scary, because typically it does not work.
Right.
And the Knicks are case in point. So that, that does freak me out a little bit.
The Nets are in a position. I'm sorry for stepping on you.
No,
the
please.
Nets are in a position, and I don't know. I think the only other team that I know this happens to, it might have been the Knicks, but they're in a position now where they're not going to make the playoffs and they don't have any draft capital, right? They're not going to be in the draft
this year. Yeah.
This year. And you say that the Nets are like the Knicks. I know that happened with the Knicks at some point. I don't know if it was with Bogdani or whatever, but is that something else that you guys remember having in another scenario where a team didn't make the playoffs and didn't have any draft capital for that offseason?
It definitely
Exactly.
happened with the Knicks when they with the last year with the year with they tried to go with it with J.R. Smith when Phil was
Yeah,
there, and they just missed the playoffs and they
exactly.
didn't tank, and then the next year they traded everybody to tank. They got like Lance Thomas back,
Irony.
and yeah, and
The
so
irony. So when
yeah.
he feels that comment about the Nets being like the Knicks, I'm like, God, that rings so true when you think about what's going on right now.
What's also funny is that Mike's getting all hyped up about Clowney at the end of the year, but then he was mocking Knicks fans for getting all excited about Obi Toppin dropping 40 on the Raptors or whatever at the end of the year.
Crazy, man.
I would
So,
say the biggest
Clowney's interesting though, man. We've heard
biggest
comparisons. I've heard comparisons to KD, which of course I think is crazy because at one point Kevin Knox
yeah,
said
come on.
to
Yeah,
KD. That's nuts. I think of him and I think about Precious Achiuwa, even though he's probably a little bit more skilled, a little bit more adept with the basketball than Precious Achiuwa is. I think that what they did with the G League, the way that they brought him along, I think that was a good route for him. I think maybe he wasn't ready when he first came out, so that was a good thing. But Clowney's interesting, man.
He's looked
Claxton
good.
most interesting. Claxton is a good player.
but they got to pay Claxton. Are they going to pay him? No, that's the
they
question.
should not pay Claxton.
If he wants more than 20, you got to let him go, right?
You got to let him because you're going to pay him $25 million to be a bad team. It's like, what's the point? Now, if this was the KD Nets and you were like, all right, we need this addition. And Alex will see Clowney on Friday and his tune will, I know he's going to drop like 0-0 now, but when you see him, and I would say the biggest difference of mocking Obi was Obi is 8 years older than Clowney is now. Clowney is 19 years old. Obi came into the league at 24. So there is a little bit difference there. The how raw he is at only 19 and showcasing what he is. And Alex got to give me something to look forward to. No draft picks.
Right.
Franchise has played so bad. At least now there's.
We got Dennis Schroeder, bro. You're okay.
He's actually stabilized them a lot
He's
more.
actually
than
good. Yeah, no. He's got a backbone. Like that's what we talk about.
Who cares? Didn't he go like 1 for 12 in the last game or something like? What
I don't have the exact. They lost by 30. It was a complete train wreck. They were up 15-10. And then
15-10.
They were. And then Sabonis.
Then the wheels
any last closing words, Alex, on your end for questions? Appreciate both guys' time and kind of wrap.
No, I mean, I really appreciate you guys coming on. It was great. I think to fast forward, not to skip the playoffs, fast forward, if the Knicks make additions, I'm putting you guys on the spots. If the Knicks make the right additions and make the right moves next year, legitimately, not fanboy eyes, can they legitimately win a championship next season in your mind? That's my question.
I'm gonna say yes. The thing that scares me is the Donovan Mitchell talk. I've never liked the pairing in my mind of Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell. I think I would actually be happier if he went to Brooklyn than he came to us. But yeah, I do think that they're probably a player where they need another shot creator, someone else at a high level that can take some of the pressure off of Jalen Brunson. But absolutely, we're in that conversation. We make the right moves, and we can absolutely be in that conversation.
Yeah, I think fully healthy, we're a championship team now. So there's no reason for me not to feel that way next year when we're healthy. I think to me, the bigger question is, what are we going to do about the contract extension with Julius Randle? How much are we going to pay him for how many years? That's the most concerning question I have right now. And not because of his injury history, but because he's going to be in his 30s during the entire duration of that contract. And I worry about paying someone $47 million a year that is not on the same level as the other players being paid $47 million a year, like Giannis or Joker. The guys who I would consider consistent year-to-year MVPs. I wouldn't put Randall in that conversation, but I would put Brunson because I think he'll be there next couple of years. And this offseason, I agree, maybe add a little more shooting, maybe add some spacing at on a power forward center position. Resign iHeart for sure. Resign OG to an affordable deal. Luckily, Leon Rose's son is his agent, so I think that's going to happen. But again, my most pressing issue right now is Julius Randle's extension. How much, for how many years? And do we have to inevitably trade him at some point?
And you guys both brought it up in the show. The nepotism has kind of worked in our favor now. At first, it was kind of annoying with the Kentucky stuff and the CAA, but now it's working in our favor, yeah, quote unquote. Now it's working in our favor because these deals are already done. Leon Rose has been talking to his son. They know what OG is going to get paid. They know what Julius Randle is going to get paid. I know he left CAA, but they have a long relationship. They know the deal. And Josh Hart opted out to re-sign. He was like, listen, just opt out so we can get these other guys in here and then we'll bring you back. You know what I mean? So there's always, if it gives you confidence that the right moves are going to be made. I don't know what the next piece is. I don't know who's going to be available, but I do feel they can. And the Julius Randle stuff, I hope it doesn't affect next season. But you get all these doctors on Twitter that are like, well, this shoulder surgery could take him out till Christmas. Like, we don't know. That's the thing, so it's a little scary. But if he's back come Christmas and then he's healthy for the rest of the season, then let's rock, you know?
Leon seems to really be leaning into getting guys to buy in for a little less, and then
Right.
screens he has for commercials and sponsorships, endorsements, and podcasts. You're making money on the back end. So I'm hoping that Randall sees maybe the Skechers deal was helped by World Wide West and Leon pulling some strings. Get him another deal, like make him the face.
Yeah.
Of tree,
Learn from Jeremy
or
Lin.
whatever you need. Make a bad outside of the Knicks cap space and let Brock Auer work his magic so we can get a few more options in here.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like I was saying, Jeremy Lin, he took the extra money on the short term and screwed himself up long term. He's going to make so much more money just staying in New York.
Yep.
Anyway.
Why don't we ask the Net fan that question? What does the Net fan think about the Knicks' future?
The future
Next season.
Do you see us in the championship next year?
Man, that is I'm perplexed by Randall in how he fits with it. My stubbornness wants to say no because I just dislike them so much, truly. But based on where Brunson's ascending, the part that I feel they do lack, and you said this before, was that second scorer. I think it's possible. Yeah, I think it's possible they could reach a finals. It's possible, but they do feel to me one piece away somewhere. But yeah, it's definitely possible. And part of me wants to just say yes so that the sports gods don't grant it. And like, if I'm nice, the karma will go the other direction. So yeah, man, I don't think it's a matter of winning the championship. It's just in how many games I think we're talking about.
This is why KD's big toe was on that line.
Oh,
this is
God.
exactly why KD's toe was on that line.
No, yeah, that was that sucked.
And the air ball too. Don't forget the air ball. He always overlooks the air ball.
He had an amazing series. I mean, he carried them on one leg and averaged a triple double with 50 burgers all over the place.
That was an amazing run. That was an amazing run.
Okay, yeah, okay.
It
was great.
You got to keep it a buck. That was an amazing run by KD.
Yeah, him personally. Lee, thank you so much. Find him on Knick of Time. The great work that he does there. Nickinator, always an amazing follow on Twitter as well, Orlando. So thank you both.
Catch him at every Knick game. Big season ticket holder, big fan. You know, we ran into each other when I was at my last game. So, you know, he's there every time. Can't miss that beard.
Thank you for having me on, guys. I do appreciate that.
Bad Weather Fans, episode 215. Don't forget, watch on YouTube, hit subscribe, find us on Apple and Spotify. Alex, wow. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm not going to say what happened. Just go to the video. I don't know how to describe that, but go to YouTube and see
Lee
what
went
happened.
into another dimension.
It was incredible. It was the best moment of the show. It took 50 minutes to get there, but you had to check it out.
Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, folks. Have a good.